Hey everybody, it's Mr. Wagstaff. Cool stuff to talk about today. Alright, so I could give you a precursor into talking about the election of 1800, but you know what? We're just going to get into it. So where we had left off at yesterday was John Adams, extremely unpopular. He had passed those Alien and Sedition Acts, which basically violate the First Amendment. There was no referee, as we had talked about yesterday, to call him out on it, because the Supreme Court, who has that authority today, hadn't been granted that power yet. There's going to be a Supreme Court case called Marbury v. Madison, which is going to allow the Supreme Court to have that case. So he passes a law called the Alien and Sedition Acts, clearly violates the First Amendment by saying that you can be thrown in jail by talking out against the government. He doesn't enforce it after Thomas Jefferson, his arch nemesis, or the leader of the other political party, comes out and basically writes the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions for Virginia and Kentucky, and then allow Virginia and Kentucky to present that as their ideas, while Thomas Jefferson was simultaneously the vice president working against his own office. So John Adams is not popular. It is now 1800. His first term is up, and John Adams is going to try to run for re-election. And again, he just tried to take people's constitutional rights away from him. He is not popular in America. So Thomas Jefferson is going to try to run against him. And he's going to run as a Democratic Republican or a Jeffersonian Republican. Again, as we've talked about, they use those terms interchangeably to describe Thomas Jefferson's political party. Thomas Jefferson is going to run for president. John Adams is going to run against him. Now, it's pretty obvious going into the election of 1800 that Thomas Jefferson is going to win. George Washington has passed away, even though he wasn't in office at the time. So he's not going to come out and say, vote for this guy or this guy. So the Americans have to make their own decisions. All right. Thomas Jefferson has a lot more support now after John Adams really botched his whole time in office. Here's the issue, though, that Thomas Jefferson is already thinking about. He's like, all right, thinking 2 steps ahead. If I win, I get to be the president. But who gets second place? If John Adams gets second place with the way the rules were at the time, he becomes the vice president, and then I have to deal with him. I don't want that to happen at all. And because John Adams is so unpopular, Thomas Jefferson's like, I just need some other dude to run, all right? And anybody will get more votes than John Adams because John Adams is so disliked. So if somebody else will run for president, so there'll be 3 of us, I will win. Random dude number 2 will be my vice president, and he can just sit there and collect a paycheck. I'm cool with it. And that will push John Adams out of the running, and then he doesn't get to be in the president's mansion anymore because they have now moved down to Washington, D.C. So in the election of 1800, leading up to it, Thomas Jefferson's got to find a third guy to run. So he calls up this dude, all right? This guy named Aaron Burr. Aaron Burr, low-level politician. Most people have never heard of him. He calls up Aaron Burr and is like, hey, you want to be the vice president? And Aaron Burr's like, sure, what do I got to do? He's like, just run for president. That's all you got to do. And Aaron Burr's like, all right. Like, why not? And all he's got to do is just sit there and collect a paycheck. He's got to do nothing else. So Aaron Burr decides to run for president. All right. So here's what happens in the election of 1800, and it blows everybody's mind. Nobody was expecting this to happen. So when you vote for the president, yes, whoever is the president gets the most votes. You know, whoever gets the most votes is the president. Whoever gets the second most votes becomes the vice president. However, when you cast your vote, it was really weird. You didn't just cast one vote. The Electoral College didn't. They each got to cast 2 votes. So you got to vote for 2 different people. All right. So the people who absolutely would never vote for John Adams don't vote for him. So like, all right, I'm voting for Thomas Jefferson, and my second vote, I'm going with Aaron Burr. All right. So everybody casts 2 votes. Guess what happens? Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr tie. They tie. So they both tie at 73 votes each. And everybody's like, wait, what? And Aaron Burr is like, what? So Aaron Burr is tied to be the president, not just the vice president. He is tied to be the president. All right. So when this happens, the House of Representatives gets together and has to decide who is going to be the new president. So they Adams is out of the running. Pinckney's out of the running. These other random guys that voted, because people that voted for Adams also voted for this Pinckney's treaty, and then John Jay from Jay's treaty. Anyway, so these guys here are eliminated. So it becomes Thomas Jefferson versus Aaron Burr. I imagine Thomas Jefferson is like, wait, what? How did I tie? And it's because they voted differently back then, and they each got 2 votes. All right. So, what happens is they go to the House of Representatives. When they get to the House of Representatives, and I got a picture here. So this is Aaron Burr. He's a Democratic Republican. Thomas Jefferson, Democratic Republican. Sometimes they call them Jeffersonian Republicans. Sometimes they call them Democratic Republicans. Who knows, depending on the picture that you look at. But they both got 73. All right. So, they go to the House of Representatives, and when they go to the House of I want to go back to this map here. When they go to the House of Representatives, the House of Representatives is the one that's going to have to vote and decide who's going to be the next president. So the question here is, why does Thomas Jefferson ask a man who many people don't even know, Aaron Burr, to run against him in the election of 1800? So we had talked about that in detail. Has to do with the vice presidential situation and all that. So pause me, go back, answer this in complete sentences, and then come back here. And the story today gets more and more bonkers the further you go through it. So, all right. So what ends up happening is Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr have to go to the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives is going to vote on who gets to be the president. Well, the House of Representatives represent the same number of people from each state that the Electoral College does. There is no way somebody from a state is going to vote differently than the way their Electoral College did. So when they go through and vote, they tie again. They go through and they vote and they tie and they tie. They vote over 30 times and it's a tie. All right. And everybody is super squirrely about it. So the way this story plays out is crazy. So it's time for a tiebreaker. So they're going through the books, look for the tiebreaker. So what ends up happening is Delaware has 1 vote. All right. So, or has 1 representative. So whichever way, if Delaware changes their vote, if that one guy changes his vote, then it completely changes the outcome of the election, all right? So he had originally voted for Aaron Burr, all right? So he originally voted for Aaron Burr, and so they're still tied. So one of his good friends, all right, and so basically whichever way Delaware is going to vote here is who's going to win. Let's simplify it. His good friend, who's whispering in his ear, who still happens to be the Secretary of Treasury, is Thomas Jefferson's arch nemesis, Alexander Hamilton. So Alexander Hamilton realizes all he's got to do is tell his buddy here in Delaware who to vote for, and that becomes the next president. And all of a sudden, Thomas Jefferson figures this out. He's like, no. He's like at the House of Representatives. He's like, this is awful. So Alexander Hamilton, I imagine, he shows up at the House of Representatives, getting ready to throw his, because he's a very popular person, just like Thomas Jefferson. These guys wrote the Declaration of Independence. They wrote the Constitution. They hate each other with a passion. Strict constructionists, loose constructionists, and they both fundamentally disagree on everything. The National Bank was where they had their big falling out at. Can't stand each other. And now Alexander Hamilton, he can use his political influence to decide who gets to be the president. So he rolls up in the House of Representatives. When Thomas Jefferson realizes what's getting ready to happen, furious. He's like, really? It comes down, this dude is going to basically influence these states and basically tell them which way to vote, and then I'm going to lose. furious about it. So when Aaron Burr sees Alexander Hamilton show up, he's like, oh, this is going to be awesome, because Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton hate each other. Surely he's going to vote for Aaron Burr just to get back at Thomas Jefferson. So Alexander Hamilton, sorry, I keep messing up the names. Alexander Hamilton looks at Thomas Jefferson and just trash talks him. And he's vocal about this. He's like, I disagree with every single thing that you do. I think you're wrong. I think your ideas are dumb. You're an idiot. Blah, 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 blah. And like Thomas Jefferson has to like just take this beating because he's trying to be the president and trying to be mature, but like super angry. This guy's just trash talking to his face right before, in Thomas Jefferson's mind, he's getting ready to lose the one thing he's ever really wanted, which is to be the president. So he thinks. So that's where he trash talks him, and Aaron Burr is just loving it. At the very end, Alexander Hamilton says, all right, so as much as you're a big turd muffin, I do think you genuinely care about the United States and you want what is best for America. And I'm pretty sure this Aaron Burr dude just wants the power. So as dumb as this is on my part, Thomas Jefferson, y'all vote for him. And the dude from Delaware switches his vote over to Thomas Jefferson, and Thomas Jefferson becomes the president of the United States, because his arch nemesis basically switched the vote over to make it happen. And Thomas Jefferson becomes the president. Aaron Burr pitches a fit. You know, I imagine he turns around, like punches an old lady in the front row, or I don't know. He makes a complete fool of himself and like storms off super angry. All right. And we're going to come back to Aaron Burr because that whole story is crazy as well. All right. So Thomas Jefferson's like, oh, I'm president. This is awesome. This is absolutely, oh my gosh, I can't believe this has happened. So once Thomas Jefferson becomes the president, you know what the first thing he does is? He fires Alexander Hamilton. He's like, yeah, we're president. You're fired. So even though Alexander Hamilton is a key influencer in allowing Thomas Jefferson to be the president, he immediately gets fired. But I mean, it's fun to say it in a story like that for the story purposes. When you switch political parties, everybody that was from the last administration gets fired anyway. So this was not a surprise. What's really cool about this, all right, and we're going to talk a whole lot more in detail about Thomas Jefferson's administration, but what is really, really important to understand here is this is a whole different political party. The Democratic Republicans or Jeffersonian Republicans, whatever, are now kicking out the Federalists, and a whole new group of people are taking over in the United States. You know what happens in other countries when political parties take over from the other political party? Everybody gets murdered in the street with machetes, hacking each other to pieces. Not in America. Everybody's like, oh, dang, my guy lost. All right, well, let's go on. Like, it's like a bloodless revolution is sometimes what it's referred to as, because there's no fighting, nothing's getting burned down. Democracy worked. Everybody said it. If you picked the wrong guy, oh well, your vote counted. It was close. Going with majority rules. The fact that worked, that is the big one. It's only after Thomas Jefferson gets elected, which means a whole different political party takes over the government and not everybody dies and it continues to run smooth. That's when the other countries are like, ooh, this democracy thing might actually be a thing. It might be effective because different ideas can constantly take place and adjust to the changing society. Really important that Thomas Jefferson gets elected here, as far as there was no murder and everything when it happened. So Jefferson immediately fires Hamilton. This is a picture of Thomas Jefferson when he comes in. We are going to talk in great detail about Thomas Jefferson's time in office. Thomas Jefferson, kind of a spoiler alert, hates it. Everybody thinks, and you can still see it present day. Everybody's like, I want to be the president, like get to the top of the mountain, be the president. And people think that when you're the president, like everybody likes you and treats you nice. Nah, everybody just comes to you with their problem all the time and like tells you how awful you are and how dumb you are. And like, being the president is not enjoyable for anybody. I don't really know of any president that's like, I loved being the president. Thomas Jefferson is going to have a very similar situation here when he comes in his time in office. The question here is, why does Alexander Hamilton, who hates Thomas Jefferson, still choose Jefferson over Burr when he is called to be the tiebreaker? Like when Hamilton decides to use his influence to change the outcome of this election, why is he going to choose Jefferson, his arch enemy, over Aaron Burr? And we had talked about that. So pause this, answer that in complete sentences, and then come back here. All right. Hamilton versus Burr. A side story in U.S. history. So could I, as a history teacher, just leave this out? Sure. But it's one of the coolest stories in U.S. history, so I'm not, because it's really cool. All right. So, it's... in my honors classes, I write an essay on it. And as ridiculous as this whole story is, I'm only telling you about like 5% of it. I mean, it's deep, man. It's some scandalous stuff. So after Aaron Burr loses the election and leaves, and Alexander Hamilton gets fired. Alexander Hamilton's rich. He doesn't really have anything else to do. He's kind of older. He's not going to run for office. So Alexander Hamilton, I guess since he picked Thomas Jefferson to be the president, like their feud is over. He's like, forget about that Thomas Jefferson guy. He's like, you know who I'm going to screw with forever? Aaron Burr. I will follow him around and harass Aaron Burr. Aaron Burr hates Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton hates Aaron Burr pretty quickly. So there's other drama here that existed for a long time, but Burr hates Hamilton for like preventing him from becoming the president. And then Hamilton hates Burr just for other just a bunch of drama. All right. So Alexander Hamilton decides to follow Aaron Burr around the country. All right. He follows Aaron Burr around the country and harasses him. So Aaron Burr, who's now people know his name because he was almost president, starts running for these political positions in different states. Whenever he runs for a political position, Alexander Hamilton runs against him. Now, Alexander Hamilton doesn't actually run in the race. He just campaigns against him and convinces everybody not to vote for him. Alexander Hamilton has nothing to gain other than just harass Aaron Burr. So he does this in multiple elections. It ends up getting to the governorship of New York, where Aaron Burr runs for the governorship of New York, and Alexander Hamilton, who doesn't even live in New York, spends a ton of money just trash-talking Burr in the papers, enough that Aaron Burr loses the election. All right? So Aaron Burr loses the election in New York, and he has had enough. All right? So what Aaron Burr does when he has had enough with Alexander Hamilton is he's going to challenge Alexander Hamilton to a duel with pistols. Right? So Aaron Burr challenges Alexander Hamilton to a gentleman's duel. All right? This is the map from the last one. All right. So the question here is, why does Aaron Burr challenge Alexander Hamilton to a duel? All right. Why? Like what has finally ticked him off enough to challenge him to a shootout? All right. So pause me, answer that, and moving on. So Hamilton has been challenged to a duel by Aaron Burr. Hamilton accepts this duel. So they show up. The reason I'm laughing is like this is like a real thing. Like these men showed up. These are rich old dudes. Like they're going to show up and shoot at each other with pistols, like with an audience. Predetermined. Like you're not like worked up over it, made an impulsive decision. Like you're all right, in 6 weeks we're gonna meet. Well, it probably wasn't that much. It's probably like this weekend. So they're gonna show up in New Jersey in a field in New Jersey back when New Jersey had fields, and they're gonna have a good old fashioned pistol duel. Now, I'm just not realizing I'm not in my classroom, so I can't walk it off. So, all right, got to use your imagination because I can't. I like to demonstrate how duels work. So duels in themselves are pretty dumb, in my mind. If you saw how they worked, it's even dumber. All right. So you're probably thinking duels, like two guys get back to back and then they walk away, right? And then they turn around and face each other and fire real quick. No, it's considerably dumber than that, all right? So what you do is you get back to back, all right? And you each have a gun. And now let me explain these guns. They're like pistols. They're like little mini muskets. They're probably about in real life, about this far, about a foot and a half, maybe. It's got like an iron, like you're shooting a marble at somebody that's probably going to be about 20 yards away, maybe 15, 20 yards away. Have you ever shot like a paintball gun and you saw the little balls come out like a knuckleball and they go all over the place and there's no aiming? This is basically what the pistols are. They're incredibly difficult to aim. So they each get a pistol, all right? They're going to march a predetermined distance away from each other, like back with their backs, and they're going to march away from each other, back to back. Then they're going to turn around and face each other, all right, with their pistols. So they don't fire immediately. The way it works is they take turns shooting at each other until somebody either can't continue or dies. So you have to wait. You just stand there and wait for this dude to shoot at you. That's absolutely insane. Like, no possible way could I do that. And here's how the rules work. Since Aaron Burr challenged Alexander Hamilton, Hamilton gets the first shot. So they get there's like a whole hundreds of people have showed up to watch this. These are two very famous guys that like the highest ranking people in America that are having a shootout in the middle of the field. So they get back to back, they walk away, they turn around. It's Hamilton's first shot, and he sits here, he aims, he fires, and completely misses Aaron Burr. All right. Now, I love the well. Let me tell you how it ends up, and I'll go back and talk about the post-game analysis on this. So now it's Burr's turn after Hamilton missed him. All right. Burr pulls out his gun. I imagine it's like the custom Hamilton Killer 5000. All right, like he's been practicing in his basement. He sits here. He points. He aims at Hamilton, fires, hits Alexander Hamilton in the chest, and kills Alexander Hamilton in this duel. All right. Apparently, this surprised people. That's another thing I don't understand. Like, they're like, he died? Oh, you mean the guy that got shot in the chest with the bullet? Yeah, he died. And they're like, really? Like, dead? And they're like, yeah. He died. And they're like, didn't see that one coming. So I guess you get, in these duels, people get shot and they don't die. I guess. I don't know. This is the only real famous duel I'm aware of. So Alexander Hamilton dies. Afterwards, all Alexander Hamilton's people, when they see that Hamilton has died, they've tried to change the story. But there was enough witnesses there to keep the story from being changed, because the story I told you is exactly what happened. Hamilton's people were like, well, Hamilton absolutely would have killed Burr, but he was trying to be too responsible and too much of a politician and too much of a gentleman that he purposely fired over his head and missed him. So that's the only reason he didn't kill Burr. And then Burr is vicious and killed him. But Hamilton shot at him and missed him. So the way it works out is it's kind of weird. Like, so after it's over, like the crowd kind of surrounds Burr and they're like, oh my gosh, like newspaper reporters and stuff are there. I imagine Aaron Burr has like Capri Sun and orange slices like it's post game. And he's like, oh, I'd like to thank God I've been training, whatever. Like a guy that just won a game. And the reason nobody's real worked up is a duel is a very common thing to do in Europe to settle disputes. However, this is the United States of America, and it's not legal. Aaron Burr just murdered a dude in like cold blood in front of everybody. So now he's wanted for murder. And he's like, wait, what? And they're like, yeah, you're under arrest. And he's like, no, and like takes off running and like disappears, and they can't catch him. He must be like Lamar Jackson, like he gone. Like they just don't catch him. So you're like, okay, well, I'm sure, after this whole thing, after Aaron Burr, he was like one vote from being the president and then murdered a dude, the same dude who kept him from being the presidency. I'm sure we're not going to hear from him anymore. No, a couple years. And the story just keeps getting dumber. So a couple years later, he is arrested down in Texas, all right, which is still part of Mexico at the time. He is arrested in Texas for trying to get together a military, claiming he is a general in the United States military. He's not. And he has now raised an army to invade Mexico, to take parts of Mexico for the United States. Yeah, you can't do that. Pretending to be the army of a country and then invading another country in the name of that army when you're actually not, that's called treason. So he ends up being arrested for treason. Like, you talk about a man who absolute plummets in his political game. He has one vote for being the president, then murders a guy and is arrested for treason. Yeah, Aaron Burr is absolutely fascinating. So if you're in my honors classes, you'll do an essay, or if you're interested otherwise, in looking up the drama between Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton. A little teaser here if you want to go look it up. One of those men hired another man to go have an affair with the other man's wife. Like, but obviously before the duel, the amount of hatred between these two guys and the pettiness is absolutely insane. So the story between these two guys is absolutely insane. So this is the painting of Aaron Burr shooting Alexander Hamilton. Even though Alexander Hamilton got shot in the chest, this is the famous picture. So I guess he's like, I've been shot in the chest. I guess. All right. So you guys are going to like this. So I don't know if you have ever seen any Got Milk commercials, but they were really famous when I was growing up in the 90s. I guess, I don't know why milk needs commercials. You're going to buy milk anyway. But they had these Got Milk commercials, and I want to show you one of these Got Milk commercials. Ignore this picture right here. It'll make sense in a second.
And that was the Vienna Wood Dance in D, one of my all-time favorites. And now let's make that random call with today's $10,000 question. It's a tough one. Who shot Alexander Hamilton in that famous duel? All right, let's go to the phones and see who's out there.
Hello?
Hello, for $10,000, who shot... Excuse me?
Hold on, let me get some milk. No!
I'm afraid your time is almost up. I'm sorry, maybe next time.
Got milk?
All right. All right. So hopefully that you found that enjoyable. They used to have these Got Milk commercials back then. So the reason I have these random picture here is after I watch that commercial every time, I'm like, oh, and I always think to say this, so I went ahead and put it in here. The actor that was in that commercial was a man named William Dafoe, which is him, who ends up becoming a very famous actor, and he ends up playing the Green Goblin in Spider-Man. So that might be, William Dafoe is in all types of movies. So I figured the most common one y'all have probably seen him in is him as the Green Goblin. Did I say Green Lantern? I hope I didn't. My brain's shutting down. So the Green Goblin in Spider-Man is played by William Dafoe, who is the same actor that was in that video clip I just showed you about Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton. All right, that's as far as we're going to get today. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Oh, before I do that, sorry. Here's the question. How does the duel end up? What ends up happening to Aaron Burr? So explain this in complete sentences. And now, after you do that, we are done for the day.